Hello, students. Today I am going to explain a poem written by Shirley Tolson. In this poem, she recalls her mother and her memories while looking at the childhood photograph when her mother was 12 years old, and so she has been deceased 12 years ago and she cannot explain her grief on her mother's loss. So, this poem is taken from class 11th, a photograph. Okay? Shirley Tolson was born on 20th May 1924 in Hanley on Thames, England, as the daughter of Douglas Horsfall Dixon and Marjorie Brown. She had a huge passion on writing and was greatly influenced by her father, who was a writer too. She secured a BA on literature from Brockenhurst College in London in the year 1953. Shortly, she took writing as career but also served as the editor for many magazines in meantime. She married Alan Brown John on 6th February 1960. They had three children: Janet Sears, Ian Tolson, and Stephen Brown John. But after 9 years, they divorced on March 1969. Salitic Christianity influenced her greatly that the most of her major works like Salitic Alternative in 1987 and Salitic Year in 1993 were on the topic. But these works indeed made her more famous. Now, students, today the poem we are going to see and study is a photograph, and the poem is: The cardboard shows me how it was when the two cousins went paddling, each one holding one of my mother's hands, and she, the big girl, some 12 years or so, all three stood still to some to smile through their hair at the uncle with the camera, a sweet face, my mother, that was before I was born, and the sea, which appears to have changed less, washed their terribly transient feet. Some 20, 30 years later, she would laugh at the snapshot, see Betty and Dolly, she would say, and look how they dressed up for their beach. The sea holiday was her past, mine is her laughter. Both thrive with the labored ease of lose. Now she has been dead nearly as many years as that girl lived, and of the circumstances there is nothing to say at all. It's silence and it's silence. Now we will see the summary of a photograph. The poem is a tribute to the poet's mother. She is looking at an old photograph of her mother, which has a frame of cardboard. The picture has three girls, in which the middle one is the oldest and tallest. It is her mother when she was 12 years old or so. Beside her, or beside her, on both sides, are her two cousins, Betty and Dolly, who are holding hands and are younger than her. They went for paddling on a beach holiday. Her uncle took the photograph. Then the poet could not help but notice her mother's sweet face. The sea touched her terribly transient feet, which depicted that she changed over the years, and the sea remained the same. After 20, 30 years, her mother would laugh at the photograph. She would make the poet look at the photograph and tell her how their parents would dress them up for the beach holiday. The beach holiday was her mother's favorite past memories, while her laugh was the poet's favorite memory. Both of them lost something which they cherished a lot, and yet cannot live that moment again. Those sweet moments were memories now. Now, the poet's mother had been dead for the past 12 years, which is the same number as of her age when the photograph was taken back then. She cannot express the grief that she has from her mother's absence. So she misses her a lot. Now I am going to explain this poem line by line. First lines are line 1 to 4. The cardboard shows me how it was when the two girl cousins went paddling, each one holding one of my mother's hands, and she, the big girl, some 12 years or so. Now, what is the meaning of paddling here? Here, the meaning of paddling is walking. So, in these lines, the poet is looking at an old photo album which is made up of cardboard. In the picture, there are three girls who are walking on the beach holding each other's hands. The girl in the middle is the tallest and the oldest. The other two girls on each side are younger than her. The girl in the middle is the poet's mother. Now, she is around 12 years old when the picture was taken. Okay, so the main word, or you can say your difficult word, is paddling, and it means walking. Okay, students, paddling means walking. Now, from line 5 to 9. All three stood still to smile through their hair at the uncle with camera, a sweet face, my mother's that was before I was born, and the sea which appears to have changed less, washed their terribly transient feet. Now, what is the meaning of transient here? The meaning of transient here is short term or it is temporary. In the above lines, the poet described how the photograph was taken. Her mother's uncle took the photograph and told them to stop and pose. All three of them left their wet hair open and smiled at the camera. The poet's attention is drawn towards his mother's face, which is described as a sweet face. The photograph was taken along before the poet was born. The poet calls their feet terrible, transient, as they were so young by then, and now they had grown older. On the other hand, the sea which touched their feet has changed less. Now I am going to explain line 10 to 13. Some 20-30 years later, she would laugh at the snapshot. See Betty and Dolly, she would say, and look how they dressed us for the beach, the sea holding. Now, here the snapshot is stand for photograph. The meaning of snapshot is photograph. After 20-30 years later, she would laugh at the photograph. She would tell she would tell me to look at her cousins, Betty and Dolly, and how their parents would dress all three of them for the beach. Now, line 14 and 15. Was her past, mine is her laughter, both wry with the labored ease of loss. Here, the wry means ironic or mocking. Here, W is silent, so we pronounce it WRY as wry. And the explanation is the poet recalls the sea holidays was her mother's favorite moment from the past, while the poet's favorite moment from the past was her mother's laughter. Both the women would think about those past memories which they cannot live again. They tried their best to adjust to what they lost. Okay? Now, line 16 to 19. Now she has been dead nearly as many years as that girl lived, and of these circumstances there is nothing to say at all. It's silence and silences. Here, silences meaning is a complete absence of sound. In the above lines, the poet says that her mother died 12 years ago, the same age her mother was in the photograph. Whenever the poet thinks of her mother's death, She cannot explain what effect she has of her mother's death. Death has silenced her mother, which has also left her speechless and silent. अब मैं आपको इस पोयम का हिंदी अनुवाद या हिंदी एक्सप्लेनेशन बताऊंगी अ फोटोग्राफ का। कवि एक पुरानी फोटोग्राफ देखती है। वह कवि की माँ और उसकी दो चचेरी बहनों बेटी और डॉली को दिखाती है। वे समुद्री तट पर छुट्टी मनाने गई थी। फोटोग्राफ कवि की माँ को 12 साल या उसके आसपास की लड़की के रूप में दिखाता है। वे वहाँ मुस्कुराती हुई खड़ी थी। उसके चाचा ने कवि की माँ की मधुर मुस्कान को कैमरे में कैद कर लिया। तीनों चचेरी बहनें समुद्र तट पर खड़ी थीं। लहरें उनके भयानक रूप से नाशवान पैरों को धो रही थीं। उसके बाद समय पंखों के जैसे पंखों पर उड़ गया, ऐसा लगता है। 20 या 30 साल निकल गए। कवि याद करती हैं कि किस प्रकार उसकी माँ हंसी थी जब उसने पुराने फोटोग्राफ को देखा था। उसने अपनी चचेरी बहनों बेटी और डॉली को बताया कि उन्होंने समुद्र तट पर जाने के लिए सालों पहले किस प्रकार की पोशाकें उन्हें पहना दी थी। माँ के लिए समुद्री छुट्टी अब एक भूतकाल की घटना बन चुकी थी, लेकिन माँ की मधुर हंसी कवि के लिए अब तक एक बीती चीज बन गई थी। दोनों को नुकसान की अनुभूति हुई थी। माँ ने अपने बचपन के वे खुशी के क्षण खो दिए थे जो उसने समुद्र तट पर बिताए थे। कवि का नुकसान माँ की हंसी का खो जाना था। दोनों ने प्रयत्न कर उस नुकसान को सुगमता से सहन करने का प्रबंध किया। फिर क्या होता है, माँ की मृत्यु हो जाती है। वह सालों पहले मर चुकी रहती है। वास्तव में उसे मरे उतने साल हो गए हैं जितने साल वह जिंदा रही। कवि को कुछ नहीं कहना यहाँ पर। उसने चुपचाप अपने भाग्य को स्वीकार कर लिया और उसकी माँ की अच्छी यादों के साथ रहने सीख